I still remember the sound of laughter. Not the warm kind that fills a room with joy. Not the kind that makes you smile without trying. This laughter was sharp, cold. It sliced straight through my chest and left me standing there, unable to move, unable to speak, wondering how people you love can become strangers in a single moment. It was my son's birthday. And in just a few minutes, it became the day I would never forget. My son, Adam, was turning 7. To most people, 7 is just a number. To Adam, it was everything. For weeks, he had been counting the days on a small paper calendar taped to his bedroom wall. Every night before sleeping, he crossed out a square with his little blue marker. Every morning, he woke up and asked the same question, his voice full of hope. "Mom, is it my birthday yet?" I would smile and shake my head. "Almost," I'd say. And every time, he'd sigh dramatically, then grin like waiting was part of the fun. I promised him it would be special. I said it without hesitation. Without fear. I didn't know then how heavy that promise would become. I didn't have much money. I'm a single mother, working long hours, always tired, always counting coins before counting dreams. Some months were harder than others. But for Adam, I tried to make life feel lighter. For months, I saved quietly. A little from each paycheck. Sometimes just enough to skip a coffee or walk home instead of taking the bus. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't complain. Every gift I bought carried a piece of my heart. There was a small toy car he had seen in a shop window one evening. We were walking past when he stopped suddenly, pressed his face against the glass, and whispered, "Mom, look." He talked about that car for weeks after, describing how fast it could go, how he would race it across the floor. There was a school bag with his favorite cartoon character. His old bag was worn and torn, but he never asked for a new one. He just tried to hide the broken zipper with his hand. And then there was the cake. I baked it myself late at night after he fell asleep. The kitchen was quiet. My hands were tired, but my heart was full. It wasn't perfect. The frosting was uneven. But it was made with love, and that mattered more than how it looked. That morning, Adam woke up before the alarm. He jumped onto my bed, his smile so wide it almost hurt my chest, in the best way. "Mom," he whispered loudly, like he was afraid to wake the whole world. "It's today." I laughed and pulled him close. "Yes," I said. "It's today." He sat up, eyes shining. "Is everyone coming?" he asked. I hesitated for half a second. Then I said, "Yes. Family will be here." I wish I had known what those words would cost us. By noon, my parents' house was full. The smell of food filled the air. Voices echoed from every room. It looked like a celebration from the outside. Chairs scraped against the floor. Someone turned music on low. Then my sister arrived. Clara was late, as usual. She walked in like she owned the place, head high, loud voice, phone glued to her hand. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. She barely glanced at Adam, who stood by the table holding his birthday hat. Clara was always like this. She had money. She had confidence. And she had a way of making people feel small without ever raising her voice. Growing up, she was the favorite. The loud one. The one who made people laugh. The one who could do no wrong. If she crossed a line, it was called a joke. If I reacted, it was called being sensitive. I learned early to stay quiet. Adam sat on the floor, his gifts stacked neatly beside him. He lined them up carefully, making sure they didn't fall. His legs bounced with excitement, like he might float away if he didn't hold still. He leaned close to me and whispered, "Can I open them now?" I nodded. Everyone gathered around. Phones came out. Smiles appeared. People leaned in, ready to record the moment. Adam opened the first gift. His face lit up like the sun had risen just for him. "Mom," he shouted, hugging the toy close. The second gift came next. He didn't even say anything. He just stood up and wrapped his arms around me, holding tight like he didn't want to let go. That hug made every sacrifice worth it. Then Clara stood up. "Oh wait," she said, laughing lightly. "Before he opens more, let me help." Something about her tone made my stomach tighten. She reached down and picked up one of the wrapped gifts. She shook it near her ear like she was guessing a prize. "What is this?" she laughed. "Cheap plastic." The room chuckled. I felt heat rush to my face. "Clara, stop," I said quietly, trying not to cause a scene. But she didn't stop. She grabbed another gift. Then another. Her laughter grew louder. And before I could stand up, before I could reach her, she ripped one open. The paper tore loudly. The room laughed again. I froze. Adam looked up at me, confused. His smile faded slowly, like he was trying to understand what game he was supposed to be playing. Then Clara dropped the toy on the floor. And stepped on it. The sound was soft. But the moment was loud. Something inside me broke. But what hurt the most was what came next. For a brief moment, I truly believed someone would stop her. My mother, who always said family comes first. My father, who taught us right from wrong. An uncle, an aunt, anyone at all. I waited for a voice to rise. For a hand to reach out. For someone to say, "That's enough." But no one did. Instead, there was laughter. Not loud, uncontrollable laughter. Just small laughs. Awkward laughs. The kind people use when they don't want to get involved. But it was enough. Enough to tell Clara she could continue. "Oh, come on," she said, smiling like she was the kind one. "It's just a joke. Kids need to learn not everything is precious." Those words landed like stones. I looked down at my son. Adam's hand started to shake. His fingers curled slowly, like he was trying to hold something together inside himself. "Mom," he whispered. That one word broke through me. I rushed forward. "That's enough," I said, my voice louder than I meant it to be. "Give me the gifts." Clara lifted her hands in the air, pretending to surrender. "Relax," she said. "I didn't know you were so sensitive." Sensitive. That word burned deeper than any insult. It was the same word she'd used my whole life. The word people used to make me feel small, like pain was my fault for feeling it. I looked at Adam again. He stared at the broken toy on the floor. His eyes filled with tears, but they didn't fall. He didn't cry. He didn't move. He just stood there, silent. That silence was unbearable. I would have preferred screaming. Crying. Anything. But that quiet told me something worse had happened. He felt embarrassed. He felt watched. He felt wrong for feeling hurt. I bent down and gathered the remaining gifts, pulling them close to my chest like they could vanish if I let go. "Party's over," I said, my voice shaking. The room went quiet for half a second. Then Clara laughed again. "Wow," she said, shaking her head. "You're really making a scene." That's when my father stood up. For a moment, hope rushed through me. This was it, I thought. Now he'll speak. Now he'll protect his grandson. But the words that came out of his mouth crushed that hope instantly. "Let it go," he said calmly. "It's just things. Just things." I stared at him, stunned. It's not about the things, I said, my voice breaking. She humiliated my child. My father sighed, the way he always did when he thought I was being difficult. Clara didn't mean harm, he said. You're overreacting. Overreacting. That word echoed in my head. I looked at Adam. His birthday hat sat crooked on his head. The string hung loose under his chin. His shoulders were slumped, like the weight of the room had settled on him. The smile he woke up with was gone. And in that moment, something painful clicked into place. This wasn't new. This wasn't just about today. This was the same story, repeating itself again. Growing up, Clara crossed lines. She broke things that mattered to me. She embarrassed me in front of friends and laughed while doing it. And every time, people told me to stay quiet. Don't ruin the mood. She's just joking. Be the bigger person. I had been quiet my whole life. But standing there, watching my son shrink into himself, I knew one thing for sure. I would not pass that silence on to him. I picked Adam up in my arms. He wrapped himself around my neck, holding on tight. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't touch the cake. There were no photos. We walked out while the room stayed frozen behind us. In the car, the silence followed us. Adam stared out the window for a long time. Then his lip trembled. I didn't like my birthday, he said softly. That single sentence shattered me. I reached over and held his hand, wishing I could erase the day, wishing I could take his hurt into myself. That night, after I tucked him into bed and turned off the light, I went into the kitchen and sat alone. The house was quiet. Too quiet. I replayed everything again and again. The laughter. The silence. My father choosing comfort over truth. And somewhere between the anger and the sadness, something changed inside me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. This wasn't just about gifts. This wasn't just about one birthday. This was about respect. And Clara had never learned it. But she was about to. The next few days were quiet. Too quiet. No calls. No messages. No awkward apologies wrapped in fake concern. Clara didn't reach out. My parents didn't say a word. At first, I told myself they just needed time. Maybe they were embarrassed. Maybe they didn't know what to say. But then the whispers started reaching me. Not directly. Never directly. She's dramatic. She always plays the victim. Clara was just joking. Why make it so big? Each sentence felt like a small push, trying to move the blame back onto me. That's when something finally became clear. Clara wasn't just cruel. She was protected. Protected by silence. Protected by comfort. Protected by people who didn't want to deal with the truth. And that silence had followed her for years, smoothing over every sharp edge, cleaning up every mess she left behind. Silence had allowed her to hurt people without consequences. Once I understood that, I stopped waiting for apologies. I stopped hoping someone else would fix it. Instead, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Clara liked control. She liked being the loudest voice in the room. She liked attention, especially when it came in the form of admiration. But more than anything else, she cared about one thing. Her image. She worked in a small business owned by a family friend. A place where everyone knew everyone. People spoke kindly about her. Clara's so confident. She's so helpful. She's going places. That image followed her everywhere. But I knew the real Clara. And I wasn't the only one. I started having quiet conversations. Not dramatic ones. Not angry ones. I didn't accuse. I didn't argue. I listened. At first, people hesitated. They looked around before speaking, lowering their voices like they were sharing a secret they weren't sure they were allowed to tell. Then the story started coming out. One coworker told me Clara had mocked her accent during a break, laughing and repeating words until others joined in. When the girl looked hurt, Clara smiled and said, "Relax, it's just a joke." Another person admitted Clara often took credit for ideas that weren't hers. She spoke louder in meetings, repeated someone else's words, and somehow walked away with the praise. Then there was the junior employee. Young. Nervous. New. During a meeting, Clara had called out a small mistake in front of everyone. She laughed, pointed at the screen, and said, "Wow, did you even think before doing this?" The room went silent. Later, Clara told her, "Don't be so sensitive. It'll toughen you up." Every story sounded different. But the ending was always the same. No one said anything. No one confronted her. Why? Because Clara laughed it off. Because she smiled. Because she made people doubt their own feelings. It's just a joke. You're reading too much into it. You're too sensitive. The same words she used on me. The same words she used on my son. That's when the betrayal truly hit me. It wasn't just Clara. It was everyone who knew, and stayed quiet. Everyone who chose comfort over honesty. I sat with that realization for a long time. And slowly, a plan began to form. Not a plan fueled by anger. Not a plan to humiliate her the way she humiliated others. This wasn't about revenge. This was about truth. I didn't want to destroy Clara's life. I wanted to remove the mask. I wanted the world to see her the way she treated people when she thought no one would challenge her. Because people like Clara don't fear anger. They fear exposure. And I knew exactly how to give her that. A week later, my father called. His voice was calm, almost careful, like he was choosing every word before saying it. "We're having a small family dinner," he said. "Nothing big. You should come." I held the phone in my hand for a long moment after he stopped speaking. Part of me wanted to say no. To protect myself. To protect Adam. But another part of me knew something was different. So I hesitated. Then I said yes. When we arrived, Clara was already there. She stood in the living room, laughing softly, confident as ever. Her posture was relaxed, like nothing in the world could touch her. When she saw Adam, she bent down and hugged him gently, like she had always been kind. "Happy late birthday," she said sweetly. Adam looked at me before hugging her back, unsure. I watched her closely. There was no apology in her eyes. No regret. Only control. Dinner began quietly. Too quietly. Plates clinked. Small talk floated across the table. Everyone avoided eye contact, like they were all waiting for something but didn't want to be the one to start it. My chest felt tight. Then my father stood up. He lifted his glass slightly, not smiling. "I want to say something," he said. Every sound in the room stopped. Forks froze midair. Eyes turned toward him. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened last week," he continued. My heart started racing. I felt Adam shift in his chair beside me. Clara smirked, confident, like she already knew how this would end. "I didn't handle it right," my father said slowly. "I chose silence." Clara's smile faltered. "I laughed when I should have spoken," he went on. "And by doing that, I allowed my grandson to feel small." The room froze. The air felt heavy, like no one was breathing. Clara leaned forward. Dad, it was, he raised his hand. No, he said firmly. Let me finish. I had never heard that tone from him before. He turned fully toward Clara. I've watched you hurt people for years, he said, his voice calm but steady. And every time, I told myself it wasn't serious. That you didn't mean it. Clara's face began to change. The confidence slipped. The color drained. But when you broke those gifts, my father continued, you didn't break toys. He paused. You broke trust. No one spoke. No one moved. Then my father reached into his pocket. He pulled out his phone. For a moment, I didn't understand what he was doing. Then he pressed play. Clara's voice filled the room. Laughing. Mocking. Dismissing. Short clips. Messages. Moments from meetings and conversations. Her words echoed against the walls, stripped of smiles, stripped of excuses. This is a joke. Don't be so sensitive. Relax. Each recording landed like a crack in glass. Clara shot up from her chair. This is unfair, she shouted, her voice shaking. You're all against me. She looked around the table, waiting for someone to defend her. My mother stayed silent. My uncles looked down. No one spoke. For the first time in her life, Clara was alone. My father met her eyes. You will apologize, he said quietly. Not because I'm asking you to, but because you need to understand what you've done. Clara's lips trembled. She grabbed her bag and stormed toward the door. You're all unbelievable, she snapped. The door slammed behind her. The sound echoed through the house. Silence followed. A deep, heavy silence. Then something unexpected happened. I felt relief. Not joy. Not victory. Relief. Because the truth had finally been spoken. And once spoken, it could never be taken back. Later that night, after the storm of the day had passed, my father did something I hadn't expected. He knelt down in front of Adam, his eyes soft, filled with something I hadn't seen before, remorse. I'm sorry, he said quietly, his voice trembling just a little. I should have protected you. Adam looked up at him, wide-eyed, and simply nodded. That small nod mattered more than anything else. It was acknowledgement. Validation. The kind of recognition every child deserves, and something my son had been denied for too long. Clara didn't disappear from our lives. Life isn't that simple. But she changed. Or maybe, she just stopped pretending. Her loud confidence faded. The mask she wore so carefully cracked. People started noticing, quietly at first, the difference between who she was behind closed doors and the image she projected in public. Some apologized for staying silent. Others didn't. But something had shifted. The weight of her silence no longer carried power. The lies of inaction had been exposed, and for once, the truth stood at the center of the room. Adam's next birthday came. It was quiet. Just us. No large gatherings. No pretenses. No need for anyone to prove themselves. And Adam smiled again. A full, wide, carefree smile that filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. It was a reminder that trust, once broken, can be restored, not by gifts or parties, but by honesty, acknowledgement, and protection. And I learned something.